PJ Washington erupts in the fourth quarter to lead the Mavericks to victory for their second straight win, leaving no doubt in New Orleans tonight. We'll talk about it all coming up next here on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. Here we go. Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato and our national NBA insider, Marc Stein. We are DLLS Mavs, your favorite guys, cover your favorite team every single game night. The Mavericks get it done tonight on the road over the Pelicans, leaving no doubt 137 to 136 in a high-scoring affair as PJ Washington's perfect fourth quarter helps the Mavericks get the road win, their second straight win as they begin their 5-game road trip, 1-0.
You hear the glee in his voice? He said PJ Washington twice.
That's right.
About as booming in his voice that I've heard for weeks. PJ Washington!
The PJ Washington agenda is alive and well after what was a big fourth quarter. The Mavericks were able to hang on down the stretch to get it done, avenging their controversial loss from a couple of weeks ago in New Orleans. We'll break it all down coming up here over the next hour. Really appreciate all of you joining us here on the postgame show. I see you in there, Paul. I see you, Luke. I see you, Ronald, in there. I think I saw Soren already as well. Let us know how you're feeling after tonight's win as Tim Cato, a high-scoring affair, runs back and forth between these two teams. A lot of great shot making between the Pelicans and the Mavericks, but the Dallas Mavericks were the ones to outlast the Pelicans on this night.
This is what this roster was brought together to do. It was the role players throughout the fourth quarter that stepped up over and over again. The Pelicans were like, Kyrie, we're sick of you. Double teams. We're sending double teams at you. We are going to trap you. We're going to get the ball out of your hands. You are not going to be the person who wins this game. And Dallas put enough quality role players who could do what they need to do with the ball in their hands in a way that, again, we talked all offseason about how this team was going to have more quality, more autonomy, more ability to create with the ball in their hands and just take advantage of these 4-on-3 situations that some teams will be dumb enough to send at Luka and Kyrie. You can't do that against this team. They showed exactly why in the fourth quarter. PJ showed it. Quentin Grimes showed it. Kessler Edwards had a nice play. This is exactly what we envisioned this team could be when they were assembled. And it just showed that entire fourth quarter. Really cool. The defensive stuff wasn't quite, the defense just overall wasn't quite there. But Dallas didn't really have an answer against Zion. And there was a trickle-down effect of just trying to stop Zion. So once they realized that, quite frankly, there wasn't a single player on the Mavs roster who was going to be ideal to guard him. And it's very fortunate for their sake that he was only out there 28 minutes. He's still kind of on this minutes restriction. But in those circumstances, you're just going to have to outscore the other team. And that's what Dallas did. 80 points in the second half.
80 points in the second half.
Just a really convincing, really solid fourth quarter to close this thing out. Make sure to avoid any late game situations where a layup may or may not have been goaltended. Although, for the record, I don't believe a goaltend was called this entire game.
No, I do not believe so.
My theory that maybe the NBA just said New Orleans is a goaltend-free zone still lives.
They avenged what was a controversial loss a couple of weeks ago, Marc Stein, as the Mavericks now move to 24-3 when leading after three quarters. It got a little hairy in the end there, but at the same time, and what felt like had to be, in a lot of ways, a must-win for this team on a difficult 5-game road trip, they set the tone with this win as they get ready to move on to Detroit. But a lot of guys had a hand in this one, 4 guys scoring at least 20 points. It was a collective team effort to get it done against a game Pelicans team tonight.
I mean, the good news about this trip, it's a long one, 4 more games to go, but no back-to-backs. So they do have a day of rest before each of the games. But, this is Nothing new to be said on the show, but there is no such thing with the Mavs in their current predicament as a bad W. Every W in the box score looks and feels like the kind of laugher we saw Monday night against Washington. They all look good. They all feel great. And not for the first time, and this won't be the last time either, I'm going to bring it back to food. This tweet crossed my desk earlier today. Carl's Jr., no longer with locations in the DFW area, but a very famous hamburger chain all throughout California and Southern California. So I follow them just for that little occasional glimpse of being back home.
Yeah.
And I saw this tweet today, and not only did I want a Western bacon cheeseburger after seeing this tweet, extra bacon, no cheese is the way I order it. Onion rings, delicious.
You gotta read it for the listeners.
Why has January felt like 57 days long?
Oh my gosh.
I'm guessing Carl's Jr., when they tweeted this, did not have the Dallas Mavericks in mind. But when I read it,
You don't know that.
when I read it, it felt like a Dallas Mavericks related tweet to me, because this January, which is still not over, it is only January 29th or January 29th.
29th.
They got one more game on the 31st.
That's right.
One more game left in this interminable month of January. And there are still games in February before number 77 will be back in uniform. But dare we say 7-12 since Christmas, for all the issues that this team has faced, it's not terrible. Is it livable? Can we ask the chat? What do you guys? 7-12, given the manpower situation that this team has faced, it ain't great, but it's like
They're staying afloat. They are literally staying afloat.
They're getting some help from a more forgiving West than imagined outside of the top four. But 2 wins in a row, 7-12 since Christmas, including the Christmas Day loss when Luka was injured. It should be 8-11 if we think
for 2 weeks ago.
about what happened the last time they were in New Orleans.
Before we get
That's
too
right.
far removed from the Carl's Jr. tweet, are you going to get mad at that tweet too for not capitalizing every word?
Yes.
Interesting.
At least Stein is consistent.
The difference is, unlike Tim Cato Industries, they serve a legendary Western bacon cheeseburger, legendary burger on their menu. What am I getting from the Tim Cato Twitter account except uncapitalized words?
Well, you're not
over
getting a burger
and
from
over and over
the
again.
Carl's Jr. Twitter account.
Over again.
You're getting it from the restaurant.
I love that.
But the
Stein's in
Carl's
studio.
Jr.
This is
Twitter
Our
great.
Twitter
account, like I
accounts
said,
are just
it makes
representations
you
of who we
like
are.
you see, you're working, you're in the middle of NBA trade season, and you see a tweet from a hamburger chain that you are fond of, and there's a feeling of, oh man, I can almost imagine what having that burger is like. When I see Tim Cato,
You think of all my
Oh
lovely
my
stories
God.
I've written over the years.
when I see Tim Cato, capital J journalist, as he loves to remind us, tweeting incessantly with non-capitalized sentences, the old man who wants to mentor young Tim Cato
Wow.
does get a little bit annoyed.
Do y'all need to take this outside? Y'all
Now that you bring it up,
Now y'all can go fight
are
in
you
the
glad
rain.
you brought it up?
Y'all can go fight in the rain.
I am, yeah.
As
I just
the
wanted to get your thoughts on this.
as the Mavericks fought their way through a bumbling finish to get it done
Doesn't
tonight.
matter. Doesn't matter.
A win is
Bumbling
a win.
finish does not matter.
Is a win in this state that the Mavericks are in. And yes, Soren, 7-12 is very, very okay. Or as my friend Reggie would like to say, aggressively fine. And given the state that the Mavericks are in terms of their injury situation, they had a lot of guys contribute to the 26th win of the season. As we mentioned, the Mavericks now 24-3 when leading after 3 quarters. Mavericks had 4 guys score at least 20 points tonight. PJ Washington is 12th double-double of the season with 25 points, 14 rebounds, and a career-high 8 assists to balance out what was the 5 turnovers that he had, because at times in this game, my man was smoking turnovers left and right, but he was still able to find a way to get it done with the perfect 5-for-5 fourth quarter that he had. Klay Thompson, 6 threes tonight. He had 20 points. That's now 13 three-pointers in the last 2 games for Klay Thompson. He's been on fire from the three-point line. And how about Daniel Gafford, Austin Guerrilla? 22 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks, going full 99 Shaq again on the New Orleans Pelicans, and he was able to have another monster night. And Kyrie Irving with 25 big points as well. We'll get to a lot of the guys that had a hand in this game, including Kessler Edwards, who I thought played really well in the minutes that he had. But again, Tim, Daniel Gafford manning the middle for this team, making plays all over the place, especially on the defensive end. Yet another big performance for helping out this Mavericks front court that's completely depleted right now.
I mean, yeah, he's been a grown-up. He has absolutely been a grown-up. He has been just bigger, more powerful, more physical, almost every single night than any opponent against, virtually every game. And even a few down games, like even games where he gets like 20 minutes. He's had a couple of those against Boston and Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City specifically stands out, where I thought he, in the minutes that he played, was really good. And that really stood out. So I have just been very impressed with Daniel Gafford. Again, when we were talking about his struggles, when he was not playing his best, when he kept saying he was not playing his best and expected more from himself, nobody was asking him to, supplant Derek Lively. Everybody understands that Lively is the future center of this team. But there was a level Daniel Gafford could get back to that we've seen, early this season and throughout last season that he just wasn't hitting. And for him to do this, and
have we seen this Daniel Gafford before? I mean,
this might be the best version.
This is the best he's played.
I would say yes.
I would agree.
This is the best.
I mean, he's
Daniel
been
Gafford has played in
2010
Dallas.
pretty much
for the last couple weeks.
Last 10 games or so.
Yeah,
I mean,
he has picked it up. He has taken it to a slightly even.
Didn't get a trip to the free
higher
throw.
level.
Oh no, sorry, he did. My bad.
Yeah.
He went. I looked at the wrong.
4-4. Yeah.
9 of 9 from the field.
Yeah, didn't miss a shot.
22 and 12. Very impressive.
Yes.
And they needed every bit of it from Gafford tonight, and he contributed on both ends of the floor. The Mavericks dominated the Pelicans on the boards tonight as well. A plus 16 on the glass tonight. Also a plus 19 in second chance points as well, scoring 32 second chance points tonight in a game that featured 19 turnovers by the Mavericks, and where Trey Murphy III had 32 points. Bless you, Tanner. And Zion Williamson had 29 points as well. A lot of fantastic shot making by both teams, but you give the Mavericks a lot of credit with the way that they were able to knock down threes. We said during the pregame show, the number I had was 17. I think the number 10 eventually landed on was 16 in terms of the number of three-pointers that the Mavericks needed to make tonight. For the second straight game, they knocked down 23s to be able to get it done, and they needed every last one of them. P.J. Washington with the big fourth quarter that he had. Give Quentin Grimes a lot of credit. Him and Spencer Dinwiddie combined for what was 17 points in that third quarter, really stemming the tide as well. And then Klay Thompson with some timely shot making. That's the kind of game that you need in order to beat a Pelicans team that's been playing a little bit better as of late, 5-5 in their last 10 games coming into tonight's game, despite the 3-game losing streak that they had coming in. That losing streak now extends to 4 with the Mavericks win tonight, but just a collective good win for this team.
First time all season to go 23s or more back-to-back. Says Mavs PR. First time all year.
And they needed every last one. And Bobby talks about all the time, if the Mavericks going to win games, especially in this variety that they did tonight, they're going to be shooting at least 60% from the three-point line. And they did their best to try to do that in order to get it done. Before we take our first break, let's get to our first super chat of the evening here on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. Shout out to Chris Stuckey with the $2.
Is that Rodney's brother?
I knew you were going to say that.
That's a good callback.
Absolutely.
He also mentions Detroit.
I knew that was coming.
That's a good callback. The $2.50 super chat. Sloppy, but a win is a win. On to Detroit, where the Mavericks will take on the Fighting Tim Hardaways on Friday in the Motor City. So the Mavericks getting every win that they can as they begin this road trip with a good win to move to 1-0 as they are on their season-long 5-game road trip. Coming up next here on the DLLS Mavs postgame show, what the turning point was of this game. Plus, a little bit later on, Tim Cato is going to let us know how the Mavericks were able to get this done in a variety of different ways, including a role player that had a really nice game tonight as well. All that and more coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. But first, let me talk to you a little bit about Sleeper. Sleeper, the best fantasy football league platform out there, allows you to put your ball knowledge to the test by picking whether your favorite or least favorite players will have more or less than their projected stats each week, including our guy Bobby Karalla, who was a winner tonight. We got his picks in during the pregame show. Zion Williamson had more than 23.5 points. Trey Murphy had more than the 2.5 3-pointers that he needed to get. Kyrie Irving had more than 20 points, which means our guy Bobby Karalla won $15.10 tonight with his 3.02 multiplier to get it done. With Sleeper, the more picks you combine, the more you can win, all the way up to 100 times your money. Sleeper keeps you in the loop with instant alerts to keep you alerted with breaking news and major injuries so you can stay ahead of the game and outsmart your friends like Bobby did tonight to be able to get his win. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use code DLLS Mavs to get $55 in free entries when you place a $5 contest. Apply it to any contest, and it doesn't have to be your first one. Remember, terms apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states, so check out Sleeper today.
Bobby, I know you're watching this, so I need you to look me in the eyes right now. You are now a rich man. You have money to spend thanks to your winning bets.
Picks.
Picks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to your winning picks.
That's right.
I have a recommendation about how you might want to spend that wealth, at least the first thing you're going to purchase. It's Shady Rays. Because our friends at Shady Rays, they've got you covered with premium polarized shades. They're not going to break the bank. Just so you know, Bobby, they're an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars with over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. So exclusively for our listeners or co-hosts who may have come into some money of late, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code DLLS for 35% off their polarized sunglasses. Not that Bobby, a wealthy man, needs a discount, but if you do, DLLS. As a code, try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars. Over 300,000 people.
Shout out to Aaron Deasy in the chat. He says Chipotle for everybody. You know Bobby loves himself some Chipotle. He can handle that tonight with his picks. Bobby.
What?
Bobby loves Chipotle.
What play? Are you saying the name of a place that doesn't sponsor
That's right.
us?
We don't do free advertisement around here.
I've never heard of that place in my entire life.
That's right. My bad. That's a Bobby bit. But shout out to all of you, over 200 folks watching us live on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. Give us a like while you're here as well, and make sure you subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Search DLLS Mavs wherever you get your podcast for free. Mavericks get it done 137-136 over the New Orleans Pelicans to get their 26th win of the season, now improving to an even 500 on the road at 12-12 through 24 road games. Daniel Gafford's big night, 12-4, gets it done with the 4 blocks on the defensive end. DeJounte Murray had 27, Trey Murphy with 32. Zion Williamson was dominant in the paint tonight with 29 points, but the Mavericks outlast him to get this done. Gentlemen, let's get to the turning point of tonight's game. And what was a game full of runs. When you look at the game tonight, you look at some of the numbers. The Mavericks scored 80 points in the second half. They gave up 43 in the fourth quarter, but they were still able to win by 1. But you look at this game, and you saw that there were the Mavericks' biggest lead in this game was 10. The Pelicans' biggest lead was 8. There were 17 lead changes and 10 ties in this game. Both teams going on massive scoring runs throughout the course of the game. But when you start looking at what happened in the fourth quarter, that's when things really started to get good for Dallas, especially when you started looking at what Klay Thompson was able to do. Let's look at that fourth quarter real quick, because the game tied at 103, and this is with 9:30 left in the fourth quarter. The Mavericks went on what was a 12-2 run, led by 3 threes, 2 by P.J. Washington, 1 by Klay Thompson. Daniel Gafford had a big and 1 in there to lead by 10 with 7:45 left, and actually that run gave them a lead that they would, as best as they tried to give it up, a lead that they would not relinquish in this game. But it was the timely 3-point shooting tonight, especially in that fourth quarter, that helped the Mavericks really get this lead and never really look back from there.
Yeah, 23s, that makes it way easier to win a basketball game like this. And this is, we talked about this on the pregame show. It certainly helps. So, for PJ to be the guy who steps up and does that is mildly, just a tiny bit surprising, but certainly it's something he's capable of. And he started out rough. PJ was not having a great go of it for a lot of this game. Certainly, even though he was the best option to defend Zion Williamson, did not inspire a lot of confidence.
That's very true.
Zion Williamson, the 5 turnovers, those are a bit rough at times. But this is why they trust PJ Washington. This is why he plays 38, 40 minutes in close games pretty much every night, is because this is their scorer. When next to Kyrie and Luka, when he's back, there is nobody on this team that they ask of more responsibility to put the ball in the basket than PJ Washington. This is a very intentional, purposeful choice by the Mavericks. This is something that we have joked and called it a bit that PJ gets the opening post up of nearly every game.
That's right.
Not tonight. Actually, did he get it tonight?
No, he didn't do the post up thing.
I missed the first minute.
No.
I was grabbing food. But this all stems from an idea that PJ is this team's third scorer, and the Mavericks want him to feel that way, and they want him to step on the court every time, treating himself with the air of a third scorer, of somebody who is entrusted to go get to call his number, to go get his. And that's what PJ Washington more often than not has been doing. There's games where it looks rough. Even in games like this, like I said, there are sometimes turnovers of trying to do too much. That's all going to happen when, the guy that they're entrusting to be the third scorer has to elevate to second scorer, or sometimes even first scorer when Kyrie Irving has missed time as well. But all things considered, all things overall, I think that we are seeing, we were talking about Daniel Gafford maybe being at the best level we've seen in Dallas. We are certainly seeing a PJ Washington who is at his highest level of self-creation and confidence on the offensive end. And the hope isn't that, you want PJ Washington to have to do this every single night. The hope is that he doesn't have to when Luka's back. But you do hope that what he's doing right now scales back down into this third scorer role, and everything that he's doing can be, become even more efficient. He can streamline what he's doing now into a even better understanding of where to pick his spots, where to go call his number, where to go get his own. And that is just going to make Dallas a better team. So if you want to talk about silver linings of Luka being out during this stretch, it does feel a little bit like, me as a media member just trying to find, like hopium. It's a little bit of hopium, copium type stuff. But I do think that there's some value in what PJ Washington has had, like the role he's been forced into over this past month, in the way that he's responded to it. I absolutely think that if Luka comes back and Kyrie's out there and PJ Washington is just quietly and efficiently putting up, 15 to 20 points every single night, and doing so with like just a slightly scaled back version of what he's been doing in these games, I think that's a great development. I think that's something that would have been very hard for him to become fully comfortable with if Luka's always on the court, because every role player has a natural deference that they pay to the stars, as they should. And Dallas came into the season and they wanted to get the ball out of Luka's hands a little bit, but it wasn't. This is so much different. And this is, if we look back on this stretch and say, PJ Washington, this is when you became fully, wholly comfortable in your role in Dallas. I think that's plausible. I think it's plausible that is what happens, here in a couple months when we're approaching the playoffs. And PJ Washington, if he is just awesome ever since the moment Luka gets back, I really think that it's going to be this stretch, and especially these past 2 weeks, that we point out and say, this is when he became totally comfortable with his role in this team.
I mean, this is just a good win because January, again, is the month that the Pelicans, all season long, we've talked about this team is cursed. Nobody has more injuries. This is the month that the Mavericks supplanted the Pelicans as the most banged-up team in the region.
Yes.
And it's like, look at New Orleans. I mean, no Brandon Ingram, and their bench was somewhat thin tonight, but they pretty much had their team. I mean, they had 4 of their best players, and you see why Trey Murphy III is so highly regarded in New Orleans. I mean, just shooting the absolute mess out of the ball tonight. So,
is there anyone that gets more arc on their three-point shot than Trey Murphy in the league? because my man creates rain every time he takes and knocks down a three, it feels like.
Oh, is that what's happening outside?
Pretty much. That's exactly. Trey
Interesting.
Murphy's just raining down right now on us.
Yeah, I thought it was raindrops, but it's just basketballs clanking off the roof of our studio in an undisclosed location.
I mean, the Pels got 111 points out of 4 starters tonight and didn't win the game. So again, there are certainly things we can point to that did not look good from the visitors, but like right now, 20, 30 minutes after the game, win on the board, it all looks as good as it did Monday night against Washington.
I mean, and you overcame a performance where you had 19 turnovers, but you knocked down 23s. You were able to dominate on the glass, but you gave up a ton.
The turnovers are getting old, though.
Yeah, the turnover thing, I don't necessarily appreciate. But to Tim's point about with P.J. Washington, the amount of things that he's being asked to do, you're going to get some of those turnovers from time to time. And at times for him, it was not pretty. But at what he needed to do, he was able to do at a high level. Soren had the comment in the chat. He started 4 of 12, but he finished 10 of 20, which means he made 6 of his final 8 shots, including what was a perfect 5 for 5 fourth quarter. And for Washington, he is having a career year right now. He's got 12 double-doubles, the most that he's had in a season. Obviously, he's averaging a career high over 8 rebounds per contest. And we've seen him be able to have moments like this in the postseason, but the level at which he's having to perform now in the absence of Luka Doncic, at times in the absence of Kyrie Irving, if there can be some consistency in terms of not turning the ball over and you're getting a little bit better efficiency from him, you could tell the confidence is there in which he's taking some open threes, taking and stepping into transition threes, whatever the case may be. There's things about his game that you can appreciate even aside from the mistakes that he was making, but a total team effort to be able to get this done. If you don't get the big third quarter from Quentin Grimes, who had 9 points, Spencer Dinwiddie made some plays and had some big buckets in that third quarter as well. And give credit to a guy like Kessler Edwards, who I thought played very well tonight in the opportunities that he had. He had a block in the fourth quarter that led to a Klay Thompson three-pointer in transition as well. Every guy that played tonight I thought was a positive in most ways, given the situation that the Mavericks are dealing with. And Kessler Edwards, I thought, Tim, was another guy who, again, bodies are needed and guys have got to be able to step in and play some competent minutes. Kessler Edwards, I thought, was a good example of how he was able to do that tonight.
Yeah, just active and he's a big dude. You know, that helps. Just we've talked about this a billion times, but the taller you are in the NBA, the easier it is to be a good defender, just because you literally occupy more space on the court, and that makes it harder for defenses. So I liked what he brought. I thought it was solid. Only took 2 shots in 15 minutes. I would not say that this is Kessler Edwards making a case that he's going to be in the team's rotation or anything.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. But what he's doing is still totally respectable, and
it was important tonight.
Yeah, he's full time. He had a big block late in the game. That stood out to me. So yeah, that's just one of the players who Dallas needs a lot of people stepping up, and 15 minutes for him was just what helped tonight.
You look at that third quarter as well. The Pelicans led 91-86 with 2.5 minutes left, but the Mavericks used what was a 9-0 run over a 2-minute span to take a 95-91 lead after Spencer Dinwiddie had an and one with 45 seconds left. We mentioned that third quarter. Grimes and Dinwiddie combined for the last 9 points of that period, where the Mavericks scored 40 points in that third quarter. Dinwiddie had 10 for the entirety of the period. Grimes had the 9, going 4 or 5 from the field. That was a big moment in this game, too, in a game that was full of runs, to be able to settle themselves down going into that pivotal fourth quarter, where we talked about a little bit earlier how the Mavericks were able to use that 12-2 run to really be able to take and control the game after that. Again, having to sweat it out down the stretch. I saw a comment in the chat earlier about, hey, I'm tired of these close losses and close wins. But, hey, when you're dealing with the situation that the Mavericks are dealing with, you'll take anything, whether it be on the road or at home, and even against a game Pelicans team that gave you everything that they could handle. Because I thought Zion Williamson looked fantastic tonight. You said he played 28 minutes tonight in the game?
28.
Yeah, he looked fantastic in all 28 of them.
Tanner, can you bookmark Andrea's comment? I'm going to get to that after the break. Yeah, save that one, and after the break, I'll get to that one.
Okay, shout out to Andrew with the question, and we'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. As the Mavericks get it done, 137-136 on the road over the Pelicans. Let's take our next break here on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. When we come back, We're going to enter Cato's Corner. He's going to break it down.
Cato's Corner.
That's right. Your segment's coming up in a little bit, Mark. But we're going to...
Andrea might have to wait till the fourth segment for me to chime in. Cato's Corner can run real long.
Andrea, your comment is actually what I wanted to talk about on Cato's Corner today.
Good.
We'll do all that next on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. But first, you got to go to the East-West Shrine Bowl tomorrow. Yes, the 100th edition of the East-West Shrine Bowl takes place tomorrow at AT&T Stadium, deep in the heart of Texas. See some of the nation's top college football players and the oldest college football all-star game there is. Since 1925, the game has benefited Shriners Children's and its mission to provide innovative pediatric specialty care to improve and transform the lives of children. Some of the names that have played in this game throughout the storied history of the East-West Shrine Bowl include Walter Payton, Tom Brady, Lawrence Taylor, and, of course, Pro Football Hall of Famer and Super Bowl champion Roger Staubach. The East-West Shrine Bowl has served as the starting point for many noteworthy NFL careers, including 80 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and more than 200 members of the College Football Hall of Fame as well. Shout out to Joe Hoyt. He's been doing some terrific coverage covering the East-West Shrine Bowl all week long for us here at DLLS Sports. Tickets start at just $20. Use code DLLS when purchasing 2 or more tickets to receive 50% off. Visit shrinebowl.com to buy your tickets today for the Shrine Bowl tomorrow.
Saturday Neon was started by 2 college friends, and they make officially licensed collegiate logo LED neon signs, perfect for your home, office, dorm room, fan cave, or bar. Check out their new essentials, featuring almost 50 of the biggest schools across the country, and starting at only $75. You got Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, plenty more. Like I said, almost 50. That's a lot of schools. So you'd have to assume that they probably have the University of North Texas. I don't think they do. You guys better get on that. Unlike traditional neon, these LED signs won't break or shadow, but still give you that classic uniform glow that you know and love. They're also super easy to install with provided hardware. Head over to SaturdayNeon.com and use code DLLS for 10% off your favorite sign.
Shout out to the over 240 folks watching us live here on the DLLS Mavs post-game show. Make sure you give the video a like as well and download our podcast wherever you get your podcast for free.
And let us know where you're watching from if you're so inclined. We haven't done that in a while.
Well, you haven't been here in the studio for a
Okay, well,
second.
I'm here.
You're here now. So.
I'm here for the first of 5 in a row. And
Let's go.
And they're very likely you're going to hear me make that request 5 games in a row.
Win or lose, fortunately, a Mavericks win. Okay, so this is me. Before we enter Cato's Corner real quick, so we're 2-0 when Bobby has not been here. So does this mean that he cannot come back until the Mavericks lose again?
No, I just think that he gets blamed heavily every time the Mavericks do lose.
Okay, so every time the Mavericks lose from now on.
So every time Bobby's on the show.
You realize the 2 games he missed were...
I don't.
That doesn't matter, Mark.
No.
That doesn't matter.
You know what?
You're missing the point.
You know what games Bobby was here for? The loss to the Utah Jazz.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, every time we have a show and the Mavericks lose and Bobby is on it,
it's Bobby's fault.
One segment just mocking him. Like just a roast of all of his
I don't know about
deepest
the entire
insecurities.
segment. Maybe like 2 or 3 minutes.
Maybe we should roast who he's traveling with instead.
Oh, Mark is definitely back. He is definitely back. Shout out to GM Ben.
Let's see what happens for the rest of the show.
Shout out to Zachary. He's watching in Charlotte. Our guy Luke, of course, live in Sydney, Australia.
Look at Soren in Estonia.
Shout out to Rhea Ripley.
There's a comment I wanted to talk about from on Andrea. I wasn't sure it was Andrea or Andrea.
People are watching from. Just slow down just a sec.
It's okay. We're in Cato's Corner here.
Yeah, we're in
My
Cato's
bad.
Corner.
I apologize. I'll stand down. It's Cato's hour. I mean Cato's Corner.
So yeah, Andrea or Andrea. Sorry, don't know which one.
Shout out to Andrea.
She asked, what are the chances somebody spoke to Spencer about being a facilitator versus being a shooter? And I would agree that it's been pretty noticeable that he has been making a point to just distribute the ball, to make sure that it's getting everywhere it needs to be on the court. But really, on Cato's Corner, what I wanted to talk about was if Stein was in charge of Cato's Corner, What would he say in response to this question?
Oh, look at him.
That's what I want to talk about.
Look at him
my
passing
segment.
it. Look at him passing the ball.
Yeah, I would say I think Andrea's onto something. I think there might have been a whisper or two. And look, I think also it's being a distributor. It's not his natural role. And I think, even Kyrie is looking to score first, but
which is fine.
they really did make a concerted effort to get Klay going, and I think they saw the good results from that, and I think elements of that did carry over to tonight, which is a good sign because as we could say in Bobby's honor, since he's not here, I think on this show everyone's favorite Dinwiddie is catch and shoot Dinwiddie.
That's right.
At least if we're pretending that this is a Corellustrator segment.
I like distribution Dinwiddie. I think he's been pretty good of late. But I like
Had another
him,
7 assists tonight.
Yeah, but I like him trying to get into the paint early. And
shout out from Brazil. Look at that.
Brazil.
I love seeing when people are in faraway locations.
Shout out to RJ Marshall, not RJ Barrett.
Macedonia.
In
Look at
Ontario,
that.
Canada. Shout out to you.
Look at that. Love it.
PJ Washington has been, Spencer Dinwiddie has been shooting.
Andrea, we got it right with Andrea. I don't know why Tim's trying to change the pronunciation of your name.
Andrea.
Just because it's Cato's corner.
These two are going to fight, and I'm going to let them. Yeah. Me and Tan,
hopefully I got it right. I will profusely apologize if I was wrong. Paul Tribble, Keller by way of the Philippines.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Ontario, Canada in there. Far away Arlington in there.
Anyway, the main thing beyond that doesn't make sense to me. That is good info. I would be curious when those conversations may have happened.
I need to do more reporting.
Okay.
I
They
love
were.
when Mark
I would
says
say. I would say they were needed conversations to be had.
Well, look, at times,
Especially after the one that comes to mind is the last game against New Orleans. That
Yeah.
never should have gotten to the point of, a goaltending swinging.
I think it was later. I think it was later than that.
Yeah.
Well, think about it real quick. I mean, this is the second game in a row they've had at least 30 assists. They had 30 assists tonight. They had 39 assists on Monday. When the ball is moving for this team, the offense seems to look a lot better. And when you're not having someone specifically pounding the ball into the floor for 16, 17, 18 seconds at a time, the offense continues to look better and more guys are involved, which keeps guys engaged offensively, it feels like.
And this isn't fully why this happened, but you got to remember, for pretty much the whole fourth quarter, Dallas could create 4-on-3s just by getting Kyrie the ball. Just by bringing up one guy, Kyrie would get it out of his hands, the ball would swing around. There's a bunch of open threes in that quarter. Quentin Grimes had, I think, 2, and, PJ, some of his threes were created. Some of those, I think one of them was transition, and he just dribbled up and shot it, which, he hit an 18-foot jumper today, which is, he is on long twos. It was definitely a long two. We agreed that was the long two.
Yep.
He came into this game shooting 12% on long twos. So that's how you knew that it was actually going to be a PJ night, because he hit a long two. But Klay Thompson obviously hit a 3, but it was just that ball movement. It's awesome. I think me and Bobby are aligned on this. It is awesome when teams double Kyrie and or Luka, because that consistently is when the Mavs offense looks best, because these role players are good, and they're good enough that they can sometimes just create on their own. But if you put them in advantageous situations, this is the best group of role players Dallas has ever had to solve 4-on-3 situations. They can absolutely do that. We saw that consistently. So some of the assisting is going to come from that. If a team comes out and says, we're not only going to guard Kyrie single coverage, but we're going to stay home as much as possible. We are not going to give up corner threes. We're going to make sure that he doesn't use the roll man. Then having a low assist game is perfectly fine. If Kyrie, if Kyrie's reaction to that is just to go cook, if he scores 40 points and 32 of them are unassisted, maybe more, if he's just not assisted, if that's the bulk of your offense, there's nothing wrong with that. So assists aren't inherently the sign of a good offense. Certainly for this team, specifically how the pick and roll is being played by the opponent. However, I agree that when you score 137 points, when you're facing this defensive choice from your opponent, this needed to be a game where the ball was buzzing around, and I do like that. I do like that Spencer Dinwiddie, who's been one of the main culprits, one of the main players who is willing to delve into isolation ball, but is not as good at doing that as either Luka or Kyrie. I like that he has had a change in approach that has allowed Dallas's strengths and, just overall their role players who are capable. I like that change of approach because overall the offense just looks a lot sharper, a lot smarter, quite frankly, a lot nicer to watch.
Can I pose a couple questions to chatters before you proceed?
Before you do, for those who are wondering what kind of match that Tim and Mark should have, it would be a TLC match that they would have with Tanner as the special guest referee. Mark has no idea what that is. I don't know if Tim knows what that is.
I feel like it feels like an insult, but I really have no idea what that means.
Tables, ladders, and chairs is what that would be.
That means those are legal?
That's right. That's right. You can hit your opponent with a table, a chair, or a ladder.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For those who are wondering.
Okay.
Soren in Estonia, I think you've answered this probably before, but I'm old and I forgot. Does your Mavs fandom go back to the Martin Mursep era? And then Natasha in Macedonia, I would love to hear what makes someone living in Macedonia follow the Mavericks of Dallas and wake up in the morning to watch us jokers. So if you guys could throw those answers into the chat, I am most curious.
Because they're diehards and they love their favorite guys covering their
Yeah, but
favorite
I
team
want even more specifics.
every single day.
I like to hear the backstory. Why,
I agree.
Why does someone in Macedonia become a Mavs fan?
Could it just be Slavic unity?
It could be, but
It could be.
Why? Even better, let's let Natasha tell us why.
And as soon as she does, we'll answer that here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. But for this team,
By the way, shout out Tanner for what is this? Game 48?
48.
Game 48.
That's right.
Figuring out how to make the comments font big enough.
Hey,
for
now wait a minute.
For
Hold
the
on.
old man
Wait a
to
minute.
read it.
Wait a
Hey,
minute.
The old man can actually see.
First of
Tanner
all,
didn't do that.
you're giving Tanner way too much credit.
Yeah, he didn't do
I
that.
always
number one.
Tanner always gets the credit.
Don't tell
Tanner
him.
carries
No,
this show.
I'm
It
just
was
joking.
all me. It was all me.
Yeah, it was all Tanner.
No, it
Tanner
wasn't.
makes
It
us,
wasn't.
he's the real MVP of the show because he makes us look good and sound good and make sure that we get in and out of the breaks that we need to because otherwise people yell, Kevin, stop doing that. But we appreciate Tanner, who's also a big Mavs fan as well. But this is, look, aside from all the X's and O's and everything else that we've broken down, this was a fun game. There's a lot of entertainment in this game. Zion.
Hey, 137, 136 is going to be fun if you win it.
Of course, it's more fun when you win it. But we talked about this on the pregame show. The league is better when Zion Williamson is healthy and playing well. And obviously, you don't want him to do that a lot against your favorite team. But when your team does win and Zion plays well, that cat is a locomotive and a freight train. Like, aside from the game that PJ Washington had tonight, which is a really good game, my man was getting bullied in that paint by Zion Williamson time and time again. And Tim and I kept looking at each other like, hey, man, I don't know what's going to happen with this game tonight. But PJ Washington.
Zion looks pretty good physically. I mean, clearly.
He looks good, yes.
Clearly, they're watching his minutes, and it's a good thing for the Mavs that he did not stray into the 30s. Because they did not have an answer.
If I were the GM of a middling team, I would I would inquire very strongly about the availability or lack thereof of Zion Williamson. I would buy on him right now.
I mean, he's looking good and performing well.
How far would you go, though? How many firsts?
Oh.
How many firsts do you put on the table for Zion Williamson?
Oh,
It depends
man.
on. I mean, obviously, it's so contextual, but like I would give 3 first-round picks for.
I would imagine that the Pels would be looking for at least 3. And given
3.
Zion's injury history, it's hard for me to imagine in this climate could they really get 3. So that's why I think
That's what I was going to say.
You're
More
right.
than two.
the strong likelihood is that there wouldn't be a trade.
Yeah.
Because I just don't know that a team could come up with enough
right.
to make the Pels feel comfortable
three is a
about
lot.
taking that risk. But yeah,
I think I would do 2. But,
Two, I would
and it
feel
also, of
comfortable.
course, like first-round picks are not just first-round picks anymore. Like, I mean, this has always been the case, but there is an understanding.
Ardell, you're not getting Zion Williamson for 1 first. I'm sorry. No.
But there is an understanding. I mean, it depends on the first.
Even with his injury history.
If it's unprotected,
Yeah, like
even 1, no.
so everybody knows. Everybody knows. Like, I know the NFL has like an actual score or grade assigned to every single pick throughout
And
the draft.
Jacob's comment
right?
is also
trade
correct.
value chart.
Yeah, they have a trade value chart.
That's right.
The NBA does not have an official trade value chart. And also, it would be very difficult to do because the value is not based where the pick is projected to be. It's based on whether that pick years from now is projected to be with a bad team that might cause it to be higher up in the lottery. So you can't have the same trade value scale as you'd see in like the NFL when the people make trades on draft night. But NBA teams are increasingly, they've been doing this for years, but I think the media is starting to catch up to how NBA teams grade or value what the actual picks are, what they're potentially going to turn into. There are first round picks being dealt. Actually, we just saw it with Phoenix and Utah.
They're dealing just picks. It was an entire
Utah sent 3 bad firsts or 3 okay firsts for what could be a very good first. So again, it also depends on that. But I would be willing to send a good first for Zion Williamson, and maybe a bad first as well.
Let's take our next break here on the DLLS Mavs post-game show. When we come back, we dial up the Stein line with our national NBA insider, Marc Stein. The latest on Dante Exum as the Mavericks are hoping for his return sooner rather than later. All that and more coming up next here on the DLLS Mavs post-game show. But first, we want you to become part of our DLLS Sports family by becoming a diehard member by visiting alldlls.com. For less than $7 a month, you have access to all of our premium content on our website, including our guy Tim Cato covering the Dallas Mavericks, Clarence Hill, Joe Hoyt for the Dallas Cowboys, Jeff Wilson for the Texas Rangers, and our guys Sean Shapiro and Sam Nessler writing for the Dallas Stars. We got a big win last night. Shout out to Wyatt Johnson with the hat trick in Vegas last night. To take out the Vegas Golden Knights 4-3 in what was a terrific game out in Las Vegas. But you can also get access to our member-only Discord as well. Bobby, get the hell out of here. He oh my gosh. As soon as you would come as I'm doing the diehard.
My favorite guys. Cover my favorite team.
Guys.
Get the hell out of here.
He would come as I'm doing the diehard promotion here. Wow.
Why'd you come here first?
Oh, my gosh.
Why'd you come here first?
Shout out. Well, while he's here, the bennies that you get.
You told the Uber to bring you to our top secret location?
Oh, my gosh. By the way, February 6th at Cosm, you can join us for our DLLS Mavs watch party as the Mavericks take on the Boston Celtics at 6:30 p.m. You can get 20% off.
You want my seat?
Let me finish first. 20% off the event if you're
Bobby just got a sourcing call. He left.
Of course he did. For the immersive sports viewing experience, I'm excited because I'm going to go for the first time myself this coming Saturday to watch the Royal Rumble. So I'm excited to get my first view of Cosm. Then I'll have my second viewing when we have our watch party on February 6th. Again, alldlls.com. Become a diehard member for less than $7 a month. All of our benefits and our premium content on our website, 20% off events, member-only Discord where we chat about wrestling, Mavs, Stars, Cowboys, all with our DLLS sports personalities. And, of course, store.allcitynetwork.com as well for all of our terrific merchandise as well, including our Kyrie Irving brand new He's on Fire t-shirt. Shout out if you tag us on social media, show off that physical diehard card as well. We'll acknowledge you like we did with a newest member of our DLLS sports family as well. So really appreciate all of you.
Wow. Ardell with some heat in the chat. Should we throw that on the screen, Tanner?
Real quick, the link for our Cosm event is in the chat as well. Shout out to our guy Channel throwing that in there. Alldlls.com. Click on events, and you can get your ticket to come hang out with us on February 6th at 6:30 at Cosm. Before we dial up the Stein line, let's get to Ardell, who lets Bobby know, quote, "Bobby, go home. It's your day off. Bobby needs a girlfriend," end quote.
The only siren in Bobby's life are the Mavericks of Dallas.
That's the true love of his life is the Dallas Mavericks. Let's dial up the Stein. Bobby's excited. He's tired. He's exhausted, but his Mavericks win, so he's levitating. We'll do that tomorrow because we don't want to hear about it right now. So we finished. Oh, that's true. We won't be here tomorrow. That's your day off. So we really don't want to hear about it till Friday then. Let's dial up the Stein line with our national NBA insider, Marc Stein, as the Mavericks win 137-136 on the road over the New Orleans Pelicans, 1-0 on their current 5-game road trip. They'll face the Fighting Tim Hardaways of Detroit on Friday night in the Motor City. Hopefully, Mark, help is on the way. Najee Marshall came back tonight. He had missed the last.
The knife!
That's right. I had to make sure we get that in. After dealing with some illness, had some good minutes for this team. He was on a 15-minute restriction tonight. But hopefully there's more help on the way in the form of Dante Exum.
Yeah, very interesting because when the team was last in the American Airlines Center after Monday night's trouncing of the very, very beatable Washington Wizards, the definite steer that I received was that Exum was unlikely to play on this trip, that Exum's return was most likely going to wait until those 4 home games right before the All-Star break, which is the same range that we expect to see Luka Doncic back at some point in those 4 games. But then yesterday, or was it even today?
Today, for today's game.
They upgraded him to doubtful. We didn't see him, but Jason Kidd addressed this before the game. It does now sound like we are going to see Exum at some point on this trip again.
Woo!
It is good news for the Mavs that they still have 4 games left on a very long trip that now takes them east, but there are no back-to-backs. They've got a day off before every game. So it doesn't really make for a practice situation, but I think we will see Exum at some stage here.
What changes in that scenario? How do you go from, okay, he's going to come back when the team's back from the home. Did he just okay, guys, I made 100 threes in a row. I hadn't done that. He had to make 100 in a row first before he get back on the court.
Because I'm not there, I don't have that answer. I will try to find out that answer. But yeah, I mean, there was tangible pessimism, I would say, that Exum could come back on this trip. And so great sign to see him already just upgraded to doubtful again. We didn't see him tonight, but and I'm telling you, Najee Marshall, I was told over the weekend, really gave it a go to try to make the Washington game his return.
Okay.
Tried to get through, again, there's no time for full practices right now. There's not enough bodies for full practices right now. But, he went through, some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not accelerated, but a more intense workout than normal. And it was
like a simulated game.
And they were just like, he can't go. He can't play against Washington. So he got back out there. You remember when they lost the goaltend game, Najee Marshall told us after the next one that one stung particularly badly for him as an ex-Pelican who really wanted to win there. So good for him to see that, good to see him make his comeback at New Orleans. Maybe that was the factor that kind of helped get him out there to go through it and grind through it, because this illness he's had has just been something else, man.
Yeah,
something else.
It's caused a lot of concern for him, just the person, to be able to hopefully get to a point where he can get onto the floor and be on the floor consistently.
Shout out, by the way, I did see Soren answered my question, which I appreciate. His Mavs fandom does go back to the mid-'90s when Estonia's the Tower of Tallinn, Martin Mursep was a Dallas Maverick, and a much younger and much skinnier Marc Stein was the beat writer for the Dallas Morning News. So shout out to Soren for following along for that long.
As we are getting just outside of 2 weeks from the NBA trade deadline on February the 6th, it'll be
8
2
days,
weeks.
man. 8 days.
Yeah, we are getting that much closer now. And obviously things, with the Mavericks, we'll see what happens as we get closer to the trade deadline.
Well, I actually have some trivia for you guys.
Oh, okay, that's right. The little Mavericks
How
trivia.
many trades? This is for everyone. Chat involved. I'm going to ask this, and then we'll give you guys time to find it.
19.
Bobby can't answer. Okay.
The over-under on trades that Nico Harrison has made in his 3+ years as GM, I'm going to establish the over-under at 12. Have we seen over or under 12 trades from Nico Harrison since he became GM?
Can I have 15 seconds?
So we're talking about
let's wait, because I want to give people in the chat time to respond. The over-under is 12. We'll come back to it. And if you think you know the exact number, please put that in the chat as well, and we will shout you out if you get it. You really think you can count them? If Cato can count them, I will have to say some very nice things after some.
It's tough because
you're trying to say with each individual transaction. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over under is 12.
He's
Okay,
made a trade
starting
in
over
each
again.
of his first 3 years here.
Look at Bobby. Bobby, well, you guys
So
can't
it's-
see Bobby, but he's trying to come up with the answer.
I'm gonna go with under, and I'm gonna go.
Ardell says under. Jeremy says under. Oscar says under. Miles says under. Who else?
Yeah, draft day trades absolutely.
Thomas
yeah,
Thomas
Agreed.
Augustus
That's
gave
what
us
makes
a
this
number
really tough.
12. Every trade counts since the summer of 2021.
Oh, Jeremy's really confident that it's
Jeremy
14.
Harrington. It's 14. Jeremy Harrington is correct.
14.
I think somebody had
And you know what?
Paul-
When I
Paul
saw
had
that
it
number,
too. Paul had 14 first. Got to hand it to
Shout
Paul.
out to Paul. He had 14.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
whoever had 14, you are correct. I have to admit, I should know all 14, and I was.
Okay,
I was
so it's Kristaps. It's trading up for Jaden Hardy the following draft. I don't think there's any trades.
I didn't say I can remember all 14.
Well, I'm gonna remember as many as I can right now. So they traded Kristaps. I believe that was the only trade they did that deadline. I don't think they did any. Bobby, help me out here.
No. He's not working.
Okay,
He's
okay,
not
fine.
working.
But it was Kristaps. The following draft, they traded up for Jaden Hardy. There may have been a draft that offseason or a trade that offseason, but I don't remember one. At the following deadline, they traded for Kyrie. That was an isolated trade. The following draft cycle, they traded up for, or they traded down when they drafted Lively, and then they traded up back into the first round for Olivia Maxence Prosper. They did a sign and trade for Grant Williams, and then at the
How
following,
many is that?
That's 7, right?
7.
So I'm gonna miss some. I don't know how we get to 14.
Christian Wood.
Christian Wood sign and trade, that has to be in there. You're right. That was the trade that I was missing from the previous summer. Then they did.
There was the trade in the last draft late with the Knicks. Huck Porty,
the
the
Porty for
Ajinça deal?
Ajinça. Yeah, that's one.
Okay, that's annoying.
That would have been. Yeah,
there was
exactly.
the 2 trades at the deadline right before the final. So that was PJ and that was Gafford.
How many
Those
are we
different
at now?
trades.
Is that 11?
I think we're up to 8.
12.
We're at 12?
I thought we're at 10, and then 11 or 12, and then there was the just one trade this summer though. I thought
The sign and trade for Klay.
Yeah.
sign and trade, and then the
Grimes?
and then Grimes Hardaway. So if we were at 12, that's 14.
No.
They'll have to be separate.
I thought it was 2 separate deals. I thought even with the 6-team trade, was it part of it?
Interesting.
Wow. So, will there be a
Anyway.
15th one, Marc Stein? Will there be a 15th?
I mean, I'd love to be able to tell you I know that, but I just look again. That number jumped off the page.
Nico Harrison doesn't know.
Shout out!
He's gonna be
Shout
15.
out to Bobby Marks from ESPN. That's who I saw print that stat. I know Nico's been active, but I didn't think it was 14 in 3+ years. So, around the league, everybody knows that history, and everybody expects them to do something, but what they might be able to do has not yet materialized. Believe me, I'm trying to pin it down. So
I've seen a couple names from Mavericks fans who they wouldn't mind seeing.
yeah, we know Herb Jones.
No. There's
I wouldn't mind losing 25 pounds by next week.
There's a certain Atlanta Hawk who's cool with Luka, who Mavericks fans wouldn't mind seeing in Dallas, maybe. But you never know what could happen. Are you counting? Okay, you're counting the transactions.
Doesn't Real GM have a Mavs transaction page?
They probably do.
I'm essentially doing that.
Before we finish up here, because I do want to touch on a couple of things that have been buzzing around the league, particularly with this whole De'Aaron Fox thing jumping off.
Oh, they traded Reggie Bullock to San Antonio for draft stuff.
Oh, draft.
That
pick
was a
swap.
trade.
Wasn't
though.
that part of Grant Williams? That was considered separate?
Oh, you're right. No, that was part of Grant Williams.
I want
But
to
can you, while you're looking it up, look up if Bobby's right. Was Hardaway and Grimes folded into the Klay
Yeah,
transaction?
it was the same one.
Let us thank our television audience for joining us here on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. The Mavericks get it done 137 to 136. We are off on Thursday. We'll be back on Friday as the Mavericks visit Tim Hardaway, Kate Cunningham, and the Detroit Pistons. Make sure you tune in our pregame show. Follow DLLS_Mavs for all the information when it comes to our pregame show as well. And we'll be back there on Friday. as we finish up here for our YouTube audience on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. Again, the Mavericks win 137 to 136. Big night for P.J. Washington. Perfect fourth quarter. He gets his 12th double-double on the season to power the Mavericks, who were able to hold on in the waning seconds to get it done on the road against the Pelicans. As we mentioned, we've been talking a little bit about the trade deadline ahead of the February 6th deadline for the association. Things starting to heat up, particularly on the West Coast when it comes to the Sacramento Kings. All the story and drama has been on the East Coast with Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. De'Aaron Fox said, hold my beer. I want to get in on this. And apparently the Sacramento Kings are making him available, taking a bunch of calls reportedly on the services of De'Aaron Fox. And he's made it reportedly known, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that a certain San Antonio Spurs is a destination.
Yeah, that's where he wants to end up.
That's where he wants to go.
And the talk for a while, the anticipation for a while had been that it was Spurs or Rockets at the top of his list. And, of course, De'Aaron Fox is from the Houston area.
Mm-hmm.
But when this story broke yesterday, God, I can't remember any of my days right
It's okay. It's long January.
God, 50. What did Carl's Jr. say? Why does this January
days.
feel like it's lasted for 57 days?
Feels like it's been 2 years, but
I reported soon after that news broke that, the message, the Rockets' plan has not changed. The Rockets want to let this group get to the playoffs, see what it can achieve without making any in-season changes. It's very much along the lines of what we heard last season about Oklahoma City. The Thunder wanted to take that team into the playoffs, see those guys in postseason, and then kind of make determinations on what they need. And then we saw the Thunder go out and trade for Caruso and sign Isaiah Hartenstein. And Houston is adamant that they are going to do the same thing. They do not want to do anything drastic. They are, the Rockets adamant that they're not going to make a run at De'Aaron Fox in season. So look, the Spurs are at the top of the list, but when a player of that caliber comes available, pretty much everybody checks it out. It is somewhat reminiscent of where the Cavs were last season with Donovan Mitchell. All last season, you had teams ringing the Cavaliers' phones off the hook, trying to get them to take offers on Donovan Mitchell. The Cavs said no to everyone. Stop calling. We ain't listening. We're going to convince Donovan Mitchell to sign an extension. The Cavaliers did. They succeeded. They convinced Donovan Mitchell to sign that extension. If they hadn't, the Cavs would have been forced to trade Donovan Mitchell or go into this season with Mitchell on the last year of his deal. And that's basically where the Kings are. Even if we don't see a deal in the next week, and it might be, there might not be enough time for a deal to come together in the next week. I think the Spurs and Kings will try. I don't know if anybody else gets into that mix. We'll see if it actually happens in the next week. But if a Fox deal doesn't happen now, it's going to happen in the offseason, because the difference between De'Aaron Fox and Donovan Mitchell, the Fox camp has made it clear to the Kings they do not want to do an extension. And the Kings cannot risk going beyond the summer with Fox potentially entering the last year of his deal next season and then taking the risk that they get nothing for him. So if we don't see a De'Aaron Fox deal in the next week, we're basically down to a week now. Because it's almost Thursday. 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. local time. Thursday, February 6th is the trade deadline. So we're basically down to a week. If we don't see a Fox deal in the next week, we're going to see one in the offseason. And then with Jimmy Butler, the Heat are absolutely, the Heat have reached, it has gotten so ugly.
Well, real quick, the other, you could argue the other difference between Donovan Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox is one is CAA, that's Mitchell, and one is Clutch, and that's De'Aaron Fox. There is a slight difference between how those two agencies work as well.
I guess you could say that, but look, if Donovan Mitchell told them I'm not doing an extension, we would have seen him traded last summer. There's no, if you're in the position of the Cavs, you cannot go into the season with this guy that you've done so much. Remember how much Cleveland gave up to get Donovan Mitchell.
Sure.
They wouldn't have been able to go into this season and risk him being on the last year of his deal. And look, now in Fox's case with the Kings, okay, they didn't give up all the, Cleveland gave up a ton in that trade to Utah, but the Kings did trade Tyrese Halliburton to prioritize Fox and build around Fox. So Fox telling them he's not going to do an extension.
That's a gut punch.
And them having to now trade him. And remember, the Kings fired Mike Brown, incredibly messy firing.
Right.
They were ripped league-wide for how they handled that firing. But results on the court, I mean, they won 11 of their first 15 after making that coaching change. The coaching change has proven to be justified based on the way they've played since. And now to deal with this situation, to have to decide, do we trade Fox now and, rush a Fox trade before the deadline? Not fun. The Heat are still in a worse position.
Sure.
Because for Miami, the thought of not coming up with a Butler deal and having to continue for the rest of the season with Butler still in Miami's building in a Heat uniform, I mean, it's really hard to imagine that scenario. So as you guys, I'm surely are aware, the price has been lowered. Miami is just like trying to find the most palatable deal they can to end that saga. But I would say, look, we've seen 5 trades already, and now there is constant conversation about both Jimmy Butler and De'Aaron Fox. So please spare me the boring trade deadline noise, because this has not been boring.
Well, if you're Sacramento, I mean, where would you even go from there at that point? Because let's say you get a deal done with De'Aaron Fox's trade deadline. I'm looking at Domantas Sabonis. I'm looking at other guys thinking, well, what's the direction?
Well, here's
around
one
here
thing
at
I
that
would
point?
say, that so the whole league knows that Fox wants to go to San Antonio.
Sure.
This does put a little bit of pressure on the Spurs to make sure they get him fast, because you don't want this to go to the summer and have other teams emerge and maybe they are added to the list of desired destinations.
Sure.
If you're the Spurs, and assuming that you want Fox, and the presumption is that they do. So there is a little bit of pressure on San Antonio, because if no deal materializes in the next week, the list of potential suitors for Fox will grow longer in the offseason. So
there's only a handful of teams that they have the kind of assets that the Spurs have, I feel like, to be able to even get that done, right?
That's okay. That I grant you that, but do the Spurs are not famed for making in-season deals.
Sure.
And you naturally don't want to just give away right away Castle. The Kings are going to want Castle. I'm sure the Spurs don't want to trade Castle in the middle of the season. So there are some tough decisions. Yes, the Spurs have the pick compensation, no question, to make a deal, but I don't know that it's that easy. It's gonna be fascinating to see where it goes here in the next 6-7 days.
Whew. Trade deadline heating
That's why
up.
Bobby Carella came in straight from the airport.
Yeah, to hear the latest NBA trade talk. But
Wearing his DLLS shirt.
It's
This guy is something else, America.
It's a company man.
This guy is something else.
Just like the Mavericks did tonight over the New Orleans Pelicans, 137-136. Massive night for PJ Washington. Again, his 12th double-double of the season. My man went off for what is 25 points, 14 rebounds, a career-high 8 assists. The PJ Washington agenda is alive and well for your boy after tonight's game. Meanwhile, the Mavericks make 23 for the second straight game, bombing away from the three-point line, as Bobby Carroll has called them to, while they are missing Luka Doncic. Hopefully 77 is on his way, but the Mavericks are staying afloat as they're able to get it done. I do want to check the standing real quick before we end the show, just to give you an idea of where things are as of tonight for the Mavericks, who came into tonight's game 9th in the West. They do get their 26th win of the season, as my tablet says, no, you're not going to check it because it crashed. So don't even worry about it. It's a signal it's time to go anyway. We'll be off on Thursday, but we'll be back on Friday for our pregame
Friday,
show.
Sunday.
It's literally every other day.
All together.
It's every other day until... Oh, that's a good show. Happy Day is a good show. But yeah, literally it's every other day for us here at DLLS Mavs. It's a busy time with the calendar turning from January to February. We're going to be right here, though, covering it all for you here on DLLS Sports. That'll do it for us here. We really appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Soren, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Luke, Ronald, Sarah, Jacob, all of you. Oscar, we appreciate all of you. Shout out to Ben Selheim. He had not been feeling well, but he's back as well. So we appreciate all of you. We couldn't do this without you. For our national NBA insider, Marc Stein, that is our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato. I'm your host, Kevin Gray. Mavericks get it done 137-136 over the Pelicans. They got a 2-game win streak. They'll be on the road on Friday to take on the Detroit Pistons. We'll talk to you then on DLLS Sports. Y'all be good. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.